Kansas is a dynamic and ever-changing landscape that transitions the central United States from the American East into the American West, encompassing approximately 82,000 square miles on the Great Plains. Kansas is a land of rarely seen wonders. The stories those wonders tell reveal a history millions of years in the making. In this film, we'll start at the eastern border of Kansas and travel across a variety of distinct physiographic regions to learn more about what makes Kansas unique. Come with us on a journey through the sky and discover a Kansas that is much more than a flyover state. Discover a rugged state that shatters misconceptions about Kansas being flat like a pancake, or endless cropland, or boring and featureless. Discover Kansas from above. We decided to tell this story with drones because the vastness of Kansas is best seen from the sky.
We've been shooting Kansas for years, but since we decided to do this Kansas from above, so shooting only drone, as much as we've shot Kansas, doing only drone has been one of the most transformative things for me as far as how I view Kansas, right? Because I already loved it. I loved the stuff, but when you completely focus on that sky view from the sky, you just see it in such a drastically different way.
Yeah.
There's just so much more to see from that angle.
Being up there and being able to see it from that level versus an airplane, because when you're up that high, you don't get a good sense of the topographic relief. But when you're down closer to the ground, I mean, we shot even in some cases like 5 feet above the ground.
Yeah. No, and that's a good point, because from a drone doesn't mean let's go up to the height of a plane, because in a lot of ways that height really isn't as beautiful anymore.
Yeah.
It's those few hundred feet so many times, it's just like, oh, I can realize flying off that cliff, what that's like.
It's almost like a roller coaster too.
It is,
you know, you can take the audience on this immersive experience, flowing through canyons or trees or whatever else, coming up over cliffs like you were saying, and dive bombing down to a lake.
When we were approached about making this film and the idea, you came up with the idea of, which I think you had it in your mind for a while, of the transition state. And and I had heard that idea before, and I've kind of seen it because we've spent so much time. But seeing this film put together now, it's kind of mind-blowing, right? Like, you have your states that are just forested, or a mountain state. But Kansas is, it's nuts when you go from the Glacial Hills and the wooded areas to what you see with the Arikaree and Castle Rock. It is, how it changes across is kind of crazy.
I think the prairie gets a bad rap, and oftentimes they'll say, well, you have to get down at ground level to really see it, that it's in its details. But in my opinion, it's like, if you can actually see the big picture, if you can get above the tree line and kind of see out and see, holy crap, this is so interesting.
I hope this film starts a wildfire. Right, and we have a lot of those in Kansas, and there's been some terrible ones. But I hope what we're doing here catches for a lot of people. I know it does for us, and we're hoping that this continues to let us explore Kansas even more and dig into it. But I hope it just helps ignites people love more. Like we've said, I think we mentioned in the film, but so many of these places we are shooting, you can get to.
Right.
You can drive the dirt roads through it, or a lot of it's our state parks and different things like that. You can go out and hike some of these places and check them out and see them.
Our journey across Kansas begins in the northeast corner of the state, in the region known to geologists as the Glacial Hills. About 600,000 years ago, this area was covered by towering glaciers. As those glaciers retreated, they left behind debris such as boulders of quartzite and loess, a special type of soil predominantly found only in this region of Kansas. Thus, the glaciers sculpted and deposited a distinct landscape in northeast Kansas. In 1804, Lewis and Clark and the Corps of Discovery passed by this region on their way up the Missouri River in search of the Northwest Passage. William Clark commented that this section of the river featured some of the most beautiful plains he had ever seen. Plains that were open and diversified with hills and valleys, all presenting themselves to the river covered almost completely in grass. Today, forestation has covered most of the Glacial Hills along the Missouri River, but one can still peer out over the landscape and imagine how it might have looked to William Clark in 1804 at the Four State Lookout in White Cloud, Kansas. Designated one of the 8 geological wonders of Kansas by the Kansas Sampler Foundation, the Four State Lookout offers views spanning far into Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, and Missouri from atop a steep-sided loess hill above the Missouri River. About 80 miles to the south of White Cloud marks the southern border of the Glacial Hills at the city of Lawrence, Kansas. Lawrence began as a center of free state politics and today is widely known as a college town and the home of both the University of Kansas and the Haskell Indian Nations University. The University of Kansas Field Station maintains a system of 5 miles of public nature trails at its research site located north of Lawrence. This trail system is a great place for hikers to experience the Glacial Hills of Kansas on foot. South of Lawrence is another great lookout in Kansas, known as Wells Overlook. This park, perched up on a high ridge, features 2 observation towers offering great scenic views of the city of Lawrence and the surrounding Glacial Hills to the north, as well as the Osage Cuestas region to the south. To the east of Wells Overlook and at the base of that ridge is a great place to see fields of the state's official flower at Hunsinger Farms. Typically, around Labor Day, the sunflower fields are in full bloom and attract photographers and families to the farm to take photos among these iconic Kansas flowers. Eastern Kansas has been the site of many bloody disputes between abolitionists in Kansas and pro-slavery raiders in neighboring Missouri in regards to free state politics around the time of the Civil War. After the war ended, the notorious James Gang continued harassing Kansas in the form of train and bank robberies. In Franklin County, south of Lawrence, there is a site known as Jesse James Cave, which is a rock shelter that is rumored to have harbored the James Gang during raids into Kansas in the late 1860s. Rock shelters and caves are common across Kansas, and while fun to explore, they should be treated as living museums by all who enter because they are oftentimes very fragile environments. About 27 miles to the west of Lawrence, we're nearing the western border of the Glacial Hills, at the state's capital, Topeka. The State House is the building housing the executive and legislative branches of the government for the state of Kansas. The State House dome, reaching a height of 304 feet, is actually taller than the 288-foot United States Capitol dome, and is one of the few capitals in the United States that continues to offer tours to go to the top. Standing atop the dome is the Ad Astra sculpture, a 22-foot bronze sculpture weighing 4,420 pounds created by artist Richard Bergen. This statue depicts a member of the Kanza tribe with a bow and arrow pointed directly at the North Star. The sculpture's title, Ad Astra, is Latin and a shortening of the state motto, Ad Astra per Aspera, which in English translates to the stars through adversity. In this area of Kansas, it is common to find old metal truss bridges spanning across rivers and creeks all over the countryside. Kansas is actually home to the largest collection of marsh-type rainbow arch bridges in America. Some of these bridges are still in use today, while others remain relics of a time gone by and are closed to traffic. South of Topeka in the Glacial Hills, we'll pass through the Osage Cuestas, where you'll see a variety of landscapes such as eastward-facing cliffs, flat plains, and rolling hills. There are two main physiographic regions that disrupt the Osage Cuestas region to the south. In the southeast is the Cherokee Lowlands, and to the west is the Chautauqua Hills, which bisect the southwestern Cuestas region. The Cherokee Lowlands is a region of about 1,000 square miles that was rich in natural resources such as coal, zinc, clay, and limestone, and was mined extensively during the late 1800s and early 1900s. In Kansas, large mechanical shovels were used to excavate deep, long trenches to reach underground coal in a process known as strip mining. Big Brutus, one of the largest shovels ever constructed, now sits as a museum and a testament to the enormous mining projects that took place in southeast Kansas during the turn of the century. The mining companies during that era were not required to reclaim the land after mining, and today those strip pits have been transformed into state parks and wildlife management areas that feature more than 1,000 unique previously stripped mined lakes ranging in size from a half acre to 50 acres. Some of the pits even have a depth up to 60 feet. Mining for a variety of natural resources still takes place in southeast Kansas today, but it's not the booming industry that it was during its heyday. Huge piles of crushed rock, called tailings, are often left behind on the surface after mining. The Chautauqua Hills region is an area averaging just 10 miles in width that splits the Osage Cuestas region from the southern Kansas border up to Yates Center in Woodson County. Rock outcrops are widespread, making this region more suited for pasture than cropland. The Chautauqua Hills physiographic region coincides with the Cross Timbers ecosystem, a patchwork of ancient hardwood forests interspersed with prairie grasses. These geological and ecological regions make a great pair because blackjack oaks, post oaks, and other hardwoods of the cross timbers thrive in the sandstone environment of the hills. There are several rivers and creeks that flow through this region and carve the sandstone into topographic relief up to 250 feet deep in some places. Those rivers also create waterfalls, such as Butcher Falls in Chautauqua County and Elk Falls in Elk County. Butcher Falls is one of the most impressive natural falls in Kansas, reaching 14 feet above Pool Creek. This waterfall is located on the Red Buffalo Ranch, which sprawls across 8,000 acres west of Sedan, Kansas. It was previously owned by television personality Bill Curtis, but recently, 4,000 acres were purchased by the Delaware tribe, who intend on continuing the legacy of its ranching operation. Elk Falls is a natural waterfall about 10 feet high and approximately 100 feet wide. It was once the site of a hydro-powered grist mill, which was built in 1875. The site also features yet another old iron truss bridge built in 1893 that allows pedestrian traffic across the river to get a better view of the falls. To the west of the Chautauqua Hills is one of Kansas's most notable and recognizable regions, the Flint Hills. This region stretches from the Oklahoma border all the way up to Marshall County in the north, and is named for the abundant residual flint eroded from the bedrock that lies near or at the surface. Famed explorer Zebulon Pike first coined the name in 1806 when he entered into his journal past very rough Flint Hills. The Flint Hills region is unique because it boasts the densest coverage of intact tallgrass prairie in North America. Big and little blue-stemmed switchgrass and Indian grass are the main native grasses in the Flint Hills. Trees are rare, except along stream and river bottoms. The Flint Hills geology was formed by erosion of Permian-age limestones and shales. During the early part of the Permian period, about 299 to 252 million years ago, shallow seas covered much of the state, and marine fossils are commonly found in this region. One of the best places to view the Flint Hills is along the eastern rise of the region, where the escarpments slope dramatically upwards out of the Osage Cuestas. The town of Beaumont is situated on the southern Flint Hills escarpment, on the border of Butler and Greenwood counties. The town site was first a stop on the stagecoach route between Fredonia and Wichita. In 1879, Edwin and Emma Russell built the Summit Hotel, later renamed as the Beaumont Hotel. In 1885, the St. Louis and San Francisco Railroad, better known as the Frisco, established Beaumont as a railroad town. A water tower built in 1885 to service the rail line still stands across from the hotel and is on the National Register of Historic Places.
I hope you're getting inspired by some of this aerial footage we're getting of Kansas. It's a beautiful state, and we want people to know that. But we also want you to know that a lot of these places we're shooting, you can go check out on the ground. Today I'm out here shooting some stuff in Beaumont, Kansas, one of the many, many gems of Kansas. The history, so much out here is just so amazing and beautiful. Like this airplane. This was owned by Barry Seal, a famous drug smuggler turned informant. They had a film made about him with starring Tom Cruise, and now his plane sits out here in Beaumont, Kansas. Just a beautiful place to come check out.
Another great place to view the Flint Hills is at its very heart, in Chase County near the Cottonwood River. Cottonwood Falls, a town along the Flint Hills Scenic Byway, is the perfect base for operations for exploring the Flint Hills in Chase County. Just a few miles west of town is Chase State Lake, which is not only a great setting to view the expanse of unbroken seas of grass, but also a great place to see the Flint Hills geology exposed at the surface. The lake's outlet creates a cascading waterfall over rocky Prather Creek. In the wet season, this waterfall rages over 3 drops that lead down to the bottom of the system, but when the lake is low and not feeding the outflow, it's a great place to examine multiple layers of the Flint Hills geological history. Back in Butler County to the south, Santa Fe Lake also has a waterfall created by the lake's outflow into Dry Creek. The waterfall spans about 450 feet wide, connecting the southern section of the park to the northern section. Santa Fe Lake is located a very short distance from Wichita, Kansas, which is located in the next region along our journey, the Arkansas River Lowlands. The surface of the Arkansas River Lowlands is a relatively flat alluvial plain made up of sand, gravel, and other sediments deposited by a meandering Arkansas River. Over the last 10 million years, the river has flowed into the state from high in the Rocky Mountains, where its source is fed by runoff from rain and snowmelt. This region in Kansas is home to the biggest city in the state, Wichita, and its metro area has a population of approximately 600,000 people. Wichita began as a trading post on the Chisholm Trail in the 1860s and was incorporated as a city in 1870. It became a destination for cattle drives traveling north from Texas to Kansas railroads, earning it the nickname Cowtown. The Cowtown Museum is a great place to connect with Wichita's Chisholm Trail history. At the convergence of the Little and Big Arkansas rivers in Wichita, a monument has been erected depicting a Native American chief, designed by Kiowa artist Black Bear Boson. The sculpture, commissioned by the city and private organizations to mark the United States bicentennial, was erected in 1974. It has since become one of Wichita's most recognizable and beloved symbols. Being the largest city in Kansas, the residents of Wichita metro area need a large supply of water, and Wichita gets about 60% of its water supply from the Cheney Reservoir northwest of the city. The ever-blowing wind of the southern plains creates the perfect environment for sailing at Cheney Reservoir, and hundreds of boats cruise the water here every year. Like Santa Fe Lake, Cheney Reservoir is a great place to escape the trappings of city life and become immersed in nature just a short drive from downtown Wichita. To the southwest of Wichita, and stretching across much of the southwest border with Oklahoma, is one of the most distinct regions in Kansas, the Red Hills. The Red Hills is a rugged region, characterized by red soil and butte and mesa topography. Like the Flint Hills, the rocks here formed from sediment deposited in the remnants of an inland sea about 260 million years ago during the Permian period. The materials in the Red Hills get their rusty color from iron oxide, which turns bright red when exposed to oxygen. The Gypsum Hills, a subgroup of the Red Hills, features buttes and mesas capped in gypsum, a type of evaporate material similar to salt that is used in a variety of industrial purposes. The Gypsum Hills Scenic Byway cuts through the region and is a great way to become immersed in the landscape. Canyons are also common throughout the area, and many of them tell stories of the Gypsum Hills Wild West history from the days of when Medicine Lodge was a frontier town. In the southern region of the Gypsum Hills are formations that are reminiscent of the Spanish Skirts formations in Palo Duro Canyon State Park in the Panhandle of Texas. To the west of the Gypsum Hills is another region of Red Hills outcroppings, the Clark County Red Hills. In Clark County, the erosional features are so deep that many geological formations are present alongside the red beds and can often look like a layer cake, displaying millions of years of geologic history in one hillside. The town of Ashland is the gateway to this region, and as you head north out of town, you ascend into what can only be described as small mountains towering high above the surrounding plains. Prominences like Mount Lookout in the eastern Clark region were once used by the indigenous and pioneers alike to survey the land in every direction. Some of the deepest canyons in Kansas are found in Clark County, and among those, Bluff Creek is among the most dramatic. Here, the region is more reminiscent of the Australian outback than southwest Kansas. The water of Bluff Creek adds a touch of green to an otherwise arid landscape as it winds through canyons up to 300 feet deep. Another picturesque creek in Clark County is Kyger Creek, west of Ashland. At the Kyger Creek Bridge along Highway 160, a spectacular red wall of rock stands tall above the creek below. Seasonally, swallows will make nests on the underside of the bridge, but today the nest site is uninhabited. To the northeast of Kyger Creek Bridge is Becky's Knob, a feature that was sculpted by erosion into one of the most massive buttes in Clark County. To the northwest of Kyger Creek Bridge is the Big Basin Preserve, an 1,800-acre preserve of native mixed grass prairie managed by the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks. Big Basin is a large circular crater-like depression about 1 mile in diameter and about 100 feet deep. Big Basin is accompanied by Little Basin to the east, which is about 280 yards in diameter and 35 feet from rim to floor. Both of these depressions are the result of sinkholes. Solution subsidence is a process that occurs when surface water gains access and dissolves underground deposits of salt, gypsum, or limestone. This process is thought to still be occurring, and small depressions have been noted forming within Little Basin. The largest of which is known as St. Jacob's Well, which is a pool of water about 84 feet in diameter and approximately 58 feet deep. The Big Basin Preserve is also home to herds of American bison. These animals were brought to the preserve with the intention of restoring the natural process of maintaining the prairie ecosystem through ruminant grazing. The Smoky Hills are an upland region of hills encompassing the majority of north-central Kansas. The Smoky Hills were formed by the erosion of sedimentary deposits from the Cretaceous period and exposed sandstone, limestone, and chalk outcroppings. During the Cretaceous period, much of Kansas was covered by an inland sea. As you travel from east to west across the Smoky Hills, you can have a relative idea of how deep that ancient sea was by which outcroppings are exposed at the surface. Sediments like sandstone were deposited on beaches, whereas limestones and chalks were deposited further out to sea. The sandstone region makes up the eastern portion of the Smoky Hills. Near the community of Longford, bison and other exotic animals roam on a private pasture underneath a monument created to honor these iconic beasts of the plains. Coronado Heights, a scenic overlook and park on a 300-foot promontory a few miles northwest of Lindsborg, marks the eastern edge of the Smoky Hills region. The park has a castle and several fireplaces built from stone that was quarried in the region. Northwest of Coronado Heights is a lake near the western edge of the Smoky Hills sandstone region, Lake Wilson. Located along the Post Rock Scenic Byway, about 5 miles north of I-70, Lake Wilson is one of the most stunning lakes on the Great Plains. The lake has a rugged, rocky coastline and is fed by the Saline River. And both factors contribute to it being the clearest lake in Kansas. Must-see locations along Lake Wilson's shoreline include Rocktown, a secluded beach set among towering pillars of rock. Also, Hell Creek, which is known for its mountain biking trails as well as it being a kayaker's paradise with steep rock walls along the creek. West of Lake Wilson is a great place to explore the limestone region of the Smoky Hills, Cedar Bluff Reservoir. Cedar Bluff boasts cliffs of limestone up to 100 feet tall, which were carved by the Smoky Hills River, the river that drains the Smoky Hills region. Further west along the Smoky Hills River are chalk formations of the Smoky Hills and the Kansas Badlands. The chalk beds laid down during the Cretaceous period are a hotbed of archaeological discovery, yielding the remains of swimming and flying reptiles dating back 85 million years. These formations also provide unique habitat for a variety of wildlife living today. In this pasture near the chalk bluffs, a family of skunks skulk around for bugs to eat as the sun goes down. The Badlands of Kansas are uniquely beautiful and can be explored at several different locations at both privately owned and state-managed sites. Castle Rock, south of Quinter, is on private property, but the landowner grants public access so visitors can explore the Badlands. The majority of the western third of the state lies within the High Plains region of Kansas. This region contains vast flatlands broken up by occasional streams and river valleys. The area is semi-arid and is in stark contrast to the forested areas of eastern Kansas. Dodge City, once known as the Sin City of the West, is one of the major population centers in the High Plains region of Kansas. The cattle and railroad industries still play a major factor in Dodge City's economy, much like it did during the era of the cowboy. At the Boot Hill Museum on Wyatt Earp Boulevard, visitors can immerse themselves in the Wild West history that shaped this town. Still known as the cowboy capital of the world, Dodge City is an intersection between the days of cowboys and lawmen and modern ranching and agriculture. The largest geologic feature of the High Plains is the Ogallala Formation, and its outcroppings can be seen and enjoyed just 30 minutes north of Dodge City at the Horse Thief Reservoir near Jetmore. Even in the wintertime, this reservoir is a sight to behold, set among high bluffs of Ogallala Formation, which is made up of limestone and mortar. Another great place to view the Ogallala Formation is at Battle Canyon near Scott City. This canyon is the site of the Battle of Punished Woman's Fork, the last encounter between Native Americans and United States troops in the state of Kansas. The Northern Cheyenne, under the leadership of Chief Dullknife and Little Wolf, were trying to return to their former home in the north after escaping from a reservation at Fort Reno in Oklahoma. The women, children, and elderly sheltered in a cave at the top of the canyon, and sentries were hidden in circular pits surrounded by rock barricades, which are still visible today. As the troops advanced on the position from the northwest, Colonel Lewis was mortally wounded in the thigh. He died on his way to Fort Wallace, becoming the last Army officer to be killed in Kansas during the Indian Wars. Another location with historical significance on the High Plains is Point of Rocks in the southwest corner of the state. This formation was used during the Santa Fe Trail as a landmark on the Cimarron Cutoff. Today, it's part of the Cimarron National Grassland. The bluff overlooks the north side of the Cimarron River and lies approximately 7 miles north of Elkhart. Another common feature of the High Plains are areas of sandhills and shifting sand dunes. The Cimarron Breaks, a series of sandhills capped by the Ogallala Formation, occupy a large area along the Cimarron River east of the city of Liberal. Some of these formations, like Table Mesa, are landmarks and well known to the locals. Streams emptying into the Cimarron River to the south create a patchwork of canyons, including Keefe Canyon, which features prominent outcroppings of rock. also Fox Canyon, which is a deep, wide, sandy canyon capped with the Ogallala Formation. The Syracuse Sand Dunes Park near the Colorado border has some of the most numerous shifting sand dunes in Kansas, covering an area of about 1,300 acres. The sand dunes are constantly changing with the western Kansas weather, and the area is currently about 60% open sand. The park, which opened in 2007, features dozens of trails that crisscross their way through sand dunes and rolling hills and are perfect for ATVs and dirt bikes. This is a great place for beginners to learn, yet still challenging enough for more experienced riders. There are great sunrises and sunsets in the western Kansas sky, and the dunes are also a wonderful place to view the wildlife in the area, such as white-tailed deer and mule deer. Syracuse Sand Dunes Park is the largest public tract of sand dunes in Kansas and one of the largest parks of its kind in the Midwest. On the last leg of our journey, we traveled to the northwest corner of Kansas, to a group of rugged hills that dissect the high plains known as the Arikaree Breaks. The Breaks, with its deep ravines and gullies, is in marked contrast to the plains generally associated with the area. Like the Glacial Hills in the northeast, these breaks were formed by wind-deposited sand, silt, and clay particles called loess. After deposition, the loess has undergone spectacular processes of head cutting and sidewall cutting the advancing tributaries of the Arikaree River and the South Fork of the Republican River. The Arikaree Breaks are 36 miles long and approximately 2 to 3 miles wide. There are few trees in the rough terrain, but the pasture land has many yucca or soapweed. The abundance of native prairie grasses in this region also make it a sanctuary for wildlife on the high plains. Now that we've explored the entire state, it's easy to see why Kansas is way more dynamic than it gets credit for. The lush forested areas in the eastern third of the state are in stark contrast to the arid western third in the high plains. Places like the Flint Hills, with North America's last refuge of the tallgrass prairie, and the Red Hills, with their unique rust-red soils and rock formations, really challenged the notion that Kansas is featureless. Now that you're aware of the different regions of Kansas, we invite you to get off the highway and explore what's over the horizon. Thanks for taking this tour across our favorite land in the continental United States and discovering what it's like to witness Kansas from above.
I think that works. And you can see my Dragon Ball Z shoes. All right, so how should we start this?
I don't know. That's what's hard.
Yeah.
Hey guys, Adam here with a segment I like to call Kansas from Above, Adam from the Ground, Nick, disembodied voice from the sky.
Hey there, buddy.
This is the third time I'm out here at the 4-State Lookout, and every time on Google, when I look at the app, you know, on Google app, you can see the lines for the state, and every time I come here, the lines aren't showing up well. So it's kind of frustrating because I can't actually see where the states are, and so I sent an email to Google asking them why they're not showing up in person, and it's kind of frustrating. So I'll let you know if that gets taken care of, and they get those activated so we can more clearly see where the states are. Here again, Kansas from above, Adam from the ground. I actually have the voiceover in person with me today, which that's crazy. Look at that. We're out here at the Sand Hills by Hutch. So far, you know, we're heading towards the big one. So far, it's sandy and there's hills. So once again, well named.
This guy did all the work. I didn't even have to say a thing.
Oh, no work. Yeah. I've flown remote control airplanes for about 16 years now. I was a nerd. We used to just, you know, that's all, you know, I flew RC airplanes, and so I've seen that progression over the years. You know, we used to build drones, laser cut plywood, and these guys would get the Nintendo Wii controllers and take out the accelerometers and put them on these things, and those drones back then were terrible, right?
Yeah.
But we're slapping GoPros on it, and we're getting this terrible footage, but in the time you were like, this is incredible.
Yes.
And so I've seen that progression of drones and commercial drones and private drones and how they've progressed and what they're capable of. And now, you know, these things that we have are just, the views we can get are amazing.
Yeah.
And seeing that difference and, you know, what the different life it brings to what we can create is just so beautiful.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I actually came into the whole thing in about 2016. That's like when I started to see drones hit the market. I was already doing like weddings and real estate, and I instantly knew that that was something that I wanted to be involved in, just like from a business standpoint, all the things that you can accomplish, you know, with a drone. But also, like, man, it's like a dream come true being able to fly through the sky and have these experiences. So,
and you know, one of the things I hope that people can gather from this is, I mean, even the word drone, right? Like, we used to call them quadcopters.
Right.
You know, the drone is a bad connotation of this
drone
thing.
strikes.
But it just became what you call them. And so, you know, half of the people that I meet are like, oh, do you spy on people with that? Or you ever flown in somebody's backyard? I'm like, no, like, we're actually pretty careful. So I'm hoping that, you know, a film like this can just show that this is just a camera in the sky, and it's just a different angle to see the beauty of our state.
Yeah.
Not a bad thing. So.
There is a lot of stigma around it, I've noticed, and you know, we are licensed and insured and we're doing things the right way. And, you know, I think a good portion of the Kansas community that are droners are doing those things, doing things the right way. And I just think it's going to explode in the future.
And it's how you approach a lot of this stuff, right? I mean, like, of course, flying in somebody's backyard, you're going to be angry. But, you know, through doing this film and through the filming for years, the amount of, and you especially, the amount of people we've met, ranch owners, land owners. And when you meet them, if you talk to them and you say, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we want to see, most of the time they're excited about it. They're like, yeah, we have beautiful land out here. You should go check it out.
Oh,
we've
absolutely.
got permission to be places that we've never would have been able to be. And it's just about being respectful with.